So here we are, outside of the EX30. I think it's quite a sharply styled thing. There's definitely bits of Polestar about it, isn't there, with the tail lamps, but also a lot of Volvo as well. Big 20-inch wheels. And a very sharply styled front end. Look at that.
First impressions. I quite like this.
So this is the new Volvo EX30. We decided that despite the fact we were tempted to take out the twin motor version, which is rapid, this is the rear-wheel drive extended range, which is the one that probably, if you're interested in this car, you're likely to buy. It feels lovely, doesn't it? It feels really good quality in here. Despite the fact that there's not very many buttons and things, it did just take us a moment to figure out how to turn the radio down, which is slightly irritating. Everything, despite being made of recycled things, feels lovely.
This car has a lot of things that make you go, ooh, in it. And I can't do a high-pitched ooh, because my throat is still a little bit sore. Nice.
And that has two positions, doesn't it?
It does. Like that. That's very nice. We like that. Some more storage under here.
Yep, somewhere for your phone to charge up down here. Now this dash is all made of recycled bottles and all kinds of bits and pieces, and it actually has a bit of texture to it, so it looks like it should be flat, but you can actually feel it. It's quite tactile. The door handles at the side here though, those are especially lovely. Really nice to hold on to. Reassuring thunk.
Very well insulated. Listen to the noise outside. Very good.
You've got a Harman Kardon bar across the top of the dashboard, so gives you a bit more space in the door pockets for things, which is quite nice. There's no speakers in there. And just lots and lots of nice details. Frameless rear view mirror, big glass roof. This is the ultra spec, this one, to just point out. So this is the highest spec. It is nice. Seats are comfortable and supportive, and pretty much exactly what you'd expect from Volvo. So
they're always very reassuring cars.
Let's get going and have a look.
Everything is okay.
Everything is okay.
Everything is okay. I'm quite comfy here. I quite like this. I don't mind the steering wheel. I think it's all right.
I don't know, I couldn't get on with the Allegro squareness of it, but it just felt weird in my hands. There's a nice touch though, as it adjusts. The little monitor on top just changes its position so it's in the right place for you. And another thing, the door mirrors, when you adjust those, it's not the mirror that moves, it's literally the whole casing, so the whole thing adjusts itself, so it does look really quite smart. And it hustles this thing too, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was a gentle tickle of the throttle to get up to speed. Really quite comfy in here, comfy driving position, good range of adjustment. No, I quite like this. I'd like a speedo in the middle though, having it up there is a bit weird.
Yes, everything's on the central screen, everything. So from the climate controls to the seat controls to the whole bit. Otherwise, the electric window controls are in the centre here, with a little button to tap for the rear, sort of much like the Volkswagen. And everything otherwise, including the mirror controls, is indeed on the central touchscreen. So one thing I noticed when I was driving this is that there is a reasonable amount of body roll. Now, this isn't a sporty car really, it's not designed to be sporty. It's rolling on 20s, the right, I would say, is pretty good, pretty compliant. And there is a reasonable amount of body movement on top, but it recovers pretty well. So we've driven lots and lots of EVs that have lots and lots of power, but this, which is really quite pacey, it picks up beautifully. It does seem to be quite happy to change direction relatively well, although for me the brakes could do with a bit more feel. They're there and they do cut in, but you're quite a long way down the pedal before you get them to where you want them to be. On the road, that's probably okay. We're on the Alpine circuit here at Millbrook, which means that as we go through some of the corners, they've been designed to be off camber, awkward, particularly tight. We're just coming up against a BMW M60, just bracing myself there as we go up the hill under a wave of torque. Chasing around a Kia Picanto, look at that. Really is quite pretty here. If you've never had the opportunity to drive here, and indeed not everyone does, it is a fantastic little circuit this. So it's one-way traffic, which means you can concerned with nothing coming up the other way, which means you can use all of the road, which is quite nice. And there are areas where you can overtake, but it is very twisty. There's some areas where you do need to brake relatively hard if you're going at any sort of pace, and of course by any sort of pace we mean up to the posted speed limit, which of course we never exceed. And there's some very steep gradients. There we go. So as much as you probably see on the road, that's 14% that one, and then a crest, and some beautiful curves as well. We're back at the Volvo stand, having been out and done the Alpine circuit, which hopefully you've just seen. Well, there's no point in me saying that really, in fact, is there? Because you would have just seen it. We're back having just done the Alpine circuit. This thing is surprisingly quick, considering it's 272 horsepower, which is around about the same as a Mackie extended range rear wheel drive. It's much quicker, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll have to find out what it weighs, or I don't know how the gearing works, because it's one gear, isn't it? So I don't know if the top speed is lower or higher or what really, but it shuffles along very nicely, doesn't it? Slightly too soft on the damping, I think, for chucking it around the Alpine course. Just a bit, when the movement gets going, it takes a while to settle down, but it can either be like that, or it can be very jiggly and very bouncy and a bit uncomfortable. I think the sort of car it's designed to be, probably more comfortable is better, I would say. Yeah,
I think you've got to consider the fact this is still a Volvo, and Volvos, yes, they have, they're sporty looking, but they're not, I think, ever intended to be an entirely sporty car. If I was going to buy a car like this to move my family around in, and this would be a genuine consideration, I think, for me, this is about perfect. You can imagine driving down the motorway, popping your foot down when you need to overtake something. It's got the power, you've got the confidence that you need there to do it. For me, when you are pressing on, yes, you've got the body roll. It does help a bit, I think, in terms of the overall feel of the car. I think a little bit of body roll is okay. I know we've said this before. The only thing that really does bug me, apart from the weird sort of Allegro shaped steering wheel, which for me was irritating, and where the button section is a bit too thick perhaps behind the back of your hand, it's the brake pedal modulation, which I found there's not a lot of feel, but not a lot until you get right down in the pedal, and then it's sort of there, but I just felt like I needed just a little bit more for me.
Yeah, I think a little bit more bite on the pedal would be nicer. Just that initial, I think when you press them hard and use them, they work, but I just prefer that initial slightly sharper bite, so you know they're going to work now rather than when you get there.
Yeah. One pedal, which just is okay. It's not particularly fierce. I'm not sure if we can adjust the regen. I couldn't see a way to do it, and everything is done through the touchscreen. So things like adjusting the mirrors, you couldn't do when you're moving. I know that, of course, we shouldn't do it, but sometimes when you're reversing back into a space, you just want to drop the mirror down a little bit so you can see behind you. If you're reversing back against a curve, you don't necessarily want to do the 20-inch alloys. It does have quite a good camera though, which is well, it's a rear camera and a 360 camera as well. Not quite as funky as the MG3, which we drove earlier, but still pretty good. So this is the big touch screen, and there is the camera, as you can probably just about see. Everything here is a touch screen, so you can flick about, look in front. You can see this beautiful 262 coupe, which I think we'll have a look at in a moment.
The front wide view camera is very good, isn't it? That's very impressive.
Yeah,
to be able to see from where I'm sat now, I can, if I put my head back against the headrest, I can just see the top of the number plate of that 262. So that's giving me all of that extra vision there. My actual vision in real life stops about there. So that's a phenomenal amount of extra vision. That's very good. And of course, don't forget, everything is okay.